There are moments in life when you know, truly know, that what you are about to do is wrong. Not morally complicated, not philosophically debatable, just wrong. And yet, you do it anyway. Sometimes to save time, sometimes to protect yourself, sometimes because being selfish feels easier than being human. What we never consider in those moments is this: what we abandon might not be a thing at all. It might be a life. I learned that on a highway in America, a stretch of asphalt so ordinary that no one ever talks about it by name. No legends, no roadside warnings, no memorial crosses. Just a mile of road that refused to let me go. I've driven that highway hundreds of times. So many times that it stopped feeling like a place and started feeling like a habit. I work for a logistics firm based outside Ashford, Ohio, and every other weekend, at least I used to, I drove north to visit my parents in Linden Falls, a quiet town that still smells like pine and wet soil after rain. Same route, same exits, same gas station halfway through, glowing like a lonely ship in a black ocean. Nothing about that road was new to me. That's why what happened there shouldn't have happened. And yet, it did. It was a Friday night in early December when the cold doesn't bite. It presses. The kind of cold that feels deliberate, intelligent. Fog had settled low over the highway, thick enough to dull the world into shades of gray and black. I remember thinking how easily a car could disappear into it, how a body could vanish just a few feet off the shoulder and never be seen again. I drove slower than usual, hazard lights blinking softly, not because I was scared, but because I respected that road. One mistake out there, one moment of impatience, and the night would swallow you whole. The highway was nearly empty. No trucks, no headlights in my rearview mirror. Just me, the hum of tires, and the long white lines slipping beneath the hood like veins. That's when I saw her. She stood on the left shoulder of the road, half visible through the fog. Still. Too still. At first, I thought she was a trick of the mist, a signpost or a shadow shaped by my tired eyes. But then she moved, just enough. She raised her arm, thumb out, asking for a ride. I slowed without realizing I had decided to. My foot lifted off the accelerator, as if pulled by something other than thought. She didn't look panicked, didn't wave wildly or step into the road. She just waited. That should have been my first warning. I pulled ahead several yards and stopped, keeping my eyes on the side mirror. I expected to see her jogging toward the car, boots crunching on gravel. But the shoulder was empty. I frowned, leaning forward, scanning the fog. Then, a knock. Not loud, not urgent. Right beside my passenger window. I flinched hard enough to curse under my breath. She stood there now, close enough that I could see her face clearly through the glass. She was young, early 20s maybe. Pale skin, dark hair pulled back loosely. No makeup that I could see. No visible injuries. Her clothes were simple. Jeans, a coat too thin for the cold. Normal. That word calmed me more than it should have. I rolled the window down halfway. "I just need to get as far as Brookvale Junction," she said. Her voice was steady, calm. "I'd really appreciate it. There's no one else out here." I hesitated. The highway stretched empty in both directions, fog swallowing the road behind her. No broken down vehicle, no hazard lights, no sign of where she'd come from. "How did you get out here?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "People stop. Some take me a little farther. Some don't. This is just my last stretch." That answer should have stopped me cold. Instead, I unlocked the door. She sat in the passenger seat without a word, folding her hands neatly in her lap. The interior of the car felt smaller with her inside, quieter. too quiet. We drove for several minutes before she spoke again. "You come through here a lot," she said. I glanced at her. "Yeah, used to." "Used to?" "I avoided it for a while." "Why?" I opened my mouth to answer and closed it again. Some stories don't want to be told. They claw their way out. "A month ago," I said finally. "Something happened here." She waited. It was late, after midnight. There was another car ahead of me. Kids, I think. Drunk. Swerving. My hands tightened on the wheel. There was a woman on the road, standing just like you were, asking for help. Her gaze never left me. "They didn't slow down," I continued. "They hit her. Just hit her and kept going." My throat burned. I stopped. She was still alive. Barely. The silence inside the car felt heavy now, pressurized. "I thought about helping," I said. "Putting her in my car, driving her somewhere." I swallowed. But I didn't. I didn't say why at first. I didn't have to. I left her there. That's when I saw movement in the rearview mirror. For half a second, just half, there was someone in the back seat. A woman. Her head lolled unnaturally to one side. Blood soaked her clothes, her hair matted dark against her face. Her eyes were open, looking at me. I blinked hard, breath catching, and the seat was empty again. "You could have saved her," the girl beside me said softly. The road ahead seemed to narrow. She wanted to live. Her voice wasn't accusing. It was stating a fact. My eyelids felt heavy. Too heavy. The fog thickened, pressing in against the windshield, as if the night itself were leaning closer to listen. I don't remember stopping the car. I remember falling, knees hitting gravel, cold biting through my clothes. When I looked up, they were all around me. Men. Women. Faces torn and broken. Bloodied. Pale. Every one of them standing in a perfect circle. Every one of them saying the same thing. My accident happened here. No one stopped. No one helped. The girl stood among them now, her face no longer unmarked. "You left me," she said. I begged. I promised. I screamed. And then I was back in my car. Alone. The engine running. When I checked the mirror, she was there again on the shoulder of the road, asking for a ride. Another car was slowing down behind her. I didn't stop. I never took that highway again. I believed leaving the highway would end it. That was my first mistake. People like to think horror lives in specific places. Abandoned houses, dark roads, forgotten towns. They believe distance is protection. That if you just don't go back, whatever happened there will stay buried in the asphalt and fog. They're wrong. Some things don't belong to places. They belong to you. I reached Linden Falls just before dawn. The sky was the color of old bruises. Clouds stretched thin like torn skin. My parents' house stood exactly as it always had. White siding, narrow porch, a single porch, light glowing like a heartbeat. Safe. Familiar. I parked and sat in the car longer than necessary, hands still locked around the steering wheel. The silence inside my head was worse than the voices on the highway. When I finally stepped out, the cold felt unreal, like I had returned to a world that didn't quite want me anymore. My mother opened the door before I could knock. "You look tired," she said, pulling me into a hug. I almost told her everything right then. Almost. But how do you explain that the dead asked you for accountability? My father was sitting at the kitchen table, pale but smiling. We talked. We ate, we pretended. And for a few hours it worked. The first sign came that night. I woke to the sound of breathing. Not mine. Slow, ragged, close. I lay frozen, staring at the dark ceiling, counting seconds between each inhale. When I turned my head, the room was empty. But the air smelled wrong. metallic, old, like blood left too long on cold concrete. I didn't sleep again. Over the next few days, small things began to happen. My reflection lagged behind me in mirrors, just a fraction of a second too slow. The radio in my car whispered between stations, voices overlapping in murmurs I couldn't quite understand. My phone lit up with missed calls from numbers that didn't exist. At night, I dreamed of roads, always fog, and always someone standing just out of reach. I told myself it was guilt. That explanation fit neatly into something manageable. Therapists talk about it all the time. Trauma manifesting as hallucination, unresolved responsibility eating away at the mind. I wanted to believe that. Then I found the mud. It was on my shoes one morning, dark and wet, crusted along the soles. I hadn't gone anywhere near dirt. It had rained overnight, but the driveway was clean. The mud smelled like the shoulder of that highway. Cold, rotting leaves, oil. The dreams changed after that. They stopped being dreams. I would blink and find myself standing on the roadside again, headlights frozen in the distance, the fog alive and breathing. This time, there were more of them. Men in torn jackets, women clutching broken limbs, a child holding a shoe too small for his foot. They never touched me. They didn't need to. You saw us, they said. You chose yourself. You kept driving. Their voices overlapped until the words became noise. Then came the girl. She no longer looked whole. Her face was pale gray now, eyes sunken, mouth stained dark. She stood closer than before, close enough that I could see the damage the animals had done. You don't get to forget, she whispered. I woke screaming. I tried to leave Linden Falls early. I packed my bag before sunrise, heart pounding with a certainty I couldn't explain. As I opened the front door, my father was standing there. You're shaking, he said. I have to go. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Be careful on the road. The words felt heavier than they should have. I took a different route. Back roads, county highways, anything but that mile. It didn't matter. The fog found me anyway. It crept in slowly, curling around the trees, blurring the edges of the world. The road signs twisted, numbers melting into unreadable shapes. Then the radio clicked on by itself. You could have stopped, a voice said. I slammed on the brakes. The car skidded sideways, tires screaming. I barely avoided the ditch. When I looked up, she was standing in the middle of the road, not asking for a ride, blocking my way. Behind her, dozens of figures filled the fog. I reversed blindly, heart hammering, until the road ended at a rusted guardrail. You don't get to leave, she said. I didn't kill you, I screamed. No, she agreed. You just let me die. The figure stepped closer, and then a horn blared, real, loud. The world snapped back into place. A truck roared past me, the driver yelling through his window. I was alone again, but I knew the truth now. They weren't haunting the highway. They were haunting choice. I reported the accident the next day. I told the police everything. The drunk drivers, the woman, where I had left her. They found remains, not just hers, others. Too many. The mile gained a name after that. But it didn't matter. Because some nights, when the house is quiet and the road outside is empty, I hear knocking at my window. Soft, patient, waiting for me to open it. Confession doesn't cleanse you the way people promise it will. It doesn't wash the blood off your hands. It doesn't silence the dead. It doesn't buy forgiveness. All it does is change the shape of the nightmare. After the police found the remains, the news cycle lasted exactly 4 days. 4 days of headlines, 4 days of outrage, 4 days of strangers pretending they cared. Then the world moved on. They always do. But the mile didn't. They fenced it off for a while, placed cones, installed temporary lights. There was talk of redesigning the curve, adding cameras, patrols. People said things like, "At least something good will come of this." They were wrong. Nothing good comes from neglect that deep. I stayed in Ashford after that. I didn't trust myself behind the wheel for long drives anymore. I took unpaid leave, stopped answering calls, stopped checking mirrors. Didn't help. The knocking followed me. Always 3 taps. Never rushed. Never angry. Patient. Sometimes it came from doors. Sometimes from walls. Once, from inside the closet. I stopped sleeping altogether after that. The first time I saw them in daylight, I was in the grocery store. A mundane place. Fluorescent lights. Muzak humming softly from unseen speakers. I was reaching for a loaf of bread when the aisle temperature dropped sharply, breath fogging in front of my face. At the end of the aisle, between stacked cereal boxes, stood a man in a torn delivery uniform, his neck bent at an angle no living body could sustain. His eyes met mine. "You saw me," he said. I dropped the bread and ran. No one else noticed him. No one ever did. I sought help. That admission tastes bitter even now. Therapists, doctors, sleep specialists, all of them use the same careful language. Stress-induced hallucinations, survivor's guilt, dissociative episodes. Medication dulled the edges, but sharpened the core. The girl came closer after that. She stopped waiting for night. She appeared in reflections first. Mirrors, windows, polished surfaces. All was behind me. Always closer than before. Then she began to speak aloud. "You still drive," she said once, standing at the foot of my bed. "Just not far." "I told them," I whispered. I confessed. "You told them too late." Her face. God, her face. It changed every time I saw her. Sometimes she looked as she had that first night. Normal, frightened, alive. Other times, she looked like something recovered from a ditch weeks too late. I started researching the highway. Official reports, archived articles, accident logs. There were patterns. Always late at night. Always fog or rain. Always witnesses who almost stopped. Drivers who slowed. Drivers who rolled windows down. Drivers who thought about helping. Then didn't. I wasn't special. I was just one more name in a long line of hesitation. The dreams became instructional. I was no longer just watching. I was being shown. I saw the mile as it truly was. Not a road, but a wound. A place where moments of selfishness piled on top of one another until the ground itself learned to remember. The dead weren't trapped. They were assigned. Caretakers of consequence. The girl finally told me what they wanted on the 7th night without sleep. "You're going back," she said. "No. You owe the mile." I reported it. I told the truth. "You told your truth," she replied. "Now you finish it." Her eyes darkened. "You will stop. I fought it longer than I'm proud of. I barricaded doors, unplugged electronics, slept with lights on, music blaring. None of it mattered. On the 8th night, I woke up in my car, the engine running, fog pressing in, the mile ahead of me. My hands weren't shaking. That terrified me most of all. I parked on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking, just like I used to. The fog parted slowly, reverently. They stood waiting. Dozens of them. More than before. The girl stepped forward. "You will do what they didn't," she said. Headlights appeared in the distance. A car approaching. Slow. Cautious. I stepped into the road. I don't know how long I stood there. Minutes. Hours. Time behaves differently when judgment is watching. The car slowed, stopped. The window rolled down. A man leaned out, concern etched into his face. "Are you okay?" he asked. Behind him, I saw them watching, waiting. I nodded. "Please," I said, "don't leave." Something shifted in the fog. Approval? Relief? The mile exhaled. They let me live. That's the cruelest part. Now I stand there some nights. Not always. Only when someone else hesitates. Only when a life balances on convenience. I don't ask for rides. I don't wave. I just stand where I know I'll be seen. And when someone stops, the knocking finally stops too. They think I'm a warning now. That's what the papers called me when they ran the last story. Local man dies saving stranger on infamous highway. A cautionary headline. A lesson wrapped neatly in ink and time. But warnings don't breathe. And they don't remember. I didn't die the night I stepped into the road. That came later. Much later. For a while after the mile released me, life pretended it could go back to normal. The knocking stopped. The dreams loosened their grip. I slept, real sleep, for the first time in months. I even laughed once. That should have terrified me more than anything else. Because the mile never gives without taking. They called it heroism when I told the story publicly. Community forums invited me. Safety councils shook my hand. People nodded solemnly when I spoke about responsibility. About stopping, about choosing humanity over convenience. They didn't see the fog curl closer whenever I said the words. They didn't hear the soft tapping beneath the applause. 3 knocks. Always 3. I went back to work. I drove again. Short distances. Daylight. Busy streets. But roads. Roads remember you. Sometimes I'd see a car stalled on the shoulder, and my chest would tighten until I pulled over, heart racing, only to find it empty. Sometimes a hitchhiker would lift their thumb, and for one terrible heartbeat, I'd see her face layered over theirs like a reflection in dirty glass. I stopped every time. Every single time. And that was the problem, because stopping isn't the same as saving. The mile taught me that. It wants balance. The first death after my release happened 6 months later. A teenager. Blown tire. Midnight rain. He survived because someone stopped. Someone like me. The mile didn't like that. That night, the fog rolled into Ashford for the first time in decades. Streetlights dimmed. Power flickered. And the knocking came back. Not patient anymore. Demanding. "You tipped the scale," the girl said, standing in my hallway. Her voice echoed now, layered with others. "They lived," I said. "Isn't that the point?" Her mouth opened wider than it should have. Someone always pays. I started seeing new faces, not from the past, from the future. People who hadn't died yet. People who would. Unless... I understood then. The mile didn't want kindness. It wanted choice. Someone had to hesitate. Someone had to fail. And when no one did, it took payment elsewhere. I tried to leave Ashford, tried to run again. The roads twisted. GPS failed. Fog rose from clear skies like summoned breath. Every route bent back toward that stretch of highway. The mile wasn't done with me. It never was. The girl explained it on the night everything ended. We stood together on the shoulder, fog thick as wool, hazard lights blinking like a dying pulse. "You became part of it when you chose yourself," she said. "You earned release when you chose others." "Then why am I still here?" I asked. "Because someone has to stand where the choice happens." Headlights glimmered in the distance. A family sedan this time. Too fast. Too late. I stepped forward. The driver swerved. The car flipped. Metal screamed. Silence followed. I didn't feel pain when it hit me. Just cold. Deep. Final. As I lay there, breath leaving in thin clouds, I saw them all standing at the edge of the fog, watching, waiting, satisfied. The girl knelt beside me. "You did well," she said. Her face, finally, looked peaceful. "They say the mile is safer now. Fewer accidents, better lighting, warning signs. They say tragedy brought change. They always say that. What they don't say is this. Some nights, when the fog rolls in just right, drivers slow down for no reason they can explain. They feel watched, judged. They hesitate. And sometimes, they stop. Because somewhere in the mist, a shape stands still, not waving, not asking, just making sure they see. I don't knock anymore. I don't follow anyone home. I belong to the mile now. And it remembers everything.